video, I'm going to talk about using drop 2 voicings on a diminished 7th chord, but with an added tension note. Now, in previous videos, I've talked about using block chord voicings, drop 2 voicings, and diminished scales. And I've put links to these videos in the description below. But let's just quickly recap on those. Let's take this diminished 7th chord. And if whatever note I'm playing at the top, in this case B, play it at the bottom as well with the left hand, then I get what we call a block chord voicing. So the top note is repeated an octave lower with the left hand, the remaining notes of the chord played in between. Now let's take that chord again, but this time, instead of repeating the top note down at the bottom, we're going to take the next to the top note out and put that at the bottom. So we now get this, what we call a drop 2 voicing, which has a more open sound. Diminished scales, let's take this diminished 7th chord. If you approach each note of the chord from a semitone below, you end up with a diminished scale. So those are the notes of the diminished 7th chord. Approach the D from the C sharp, the F from the E, and so on. That's the diminished scale. There is sometimes confusion about that scale, by the way, because in some theory books it's referred to as half tone, whole tone, and sometimes as whole tone, half tone. It's the same scale, it just depends which note you start on. Generally speaking, if you're thinking about a diminished scale starting on, say, B for a B diminished chord, then you'd call it a whole tone, half tone. Starts with a whole tone, half tone. As we know, that chord, B diminished 7th, if you put a G at the bottom in the left hand, you end up with a G7 or G dominant 7 with a flattened 9. And it follows that the same scale will work for improvising over that chord. If you're thinking about using that scale but starting on G, then you'd call it half tone, whole tone. Half tone, whole tone. It's the same scale though. Okay, so let's go back now and look at the drop 2 voicing that I did. So we started off block chord. We took the next to the top note out and played it down there. Now what I'm going to do now is replace the next to the top note of this chord with the next note up from the diminished scale, and we get this sound. Now can you hear that's just got that added bit of tension? That's the ordinary drop 2 diminished 7th chord voicing. And that's with the added tension. Let's move on to the next voicing. And let's replace the next to the top note by the next note up in the diminished 7th scale. And again, you just get that little bit of added tension. That's ordinary drop 2 voicings now. Let's take the next one up and we get this. Replace the next to the top note with the note above it from the diminished scale. And keep doing that until you get to the same note, the same chord that you started on. So you get this added tension with these notes. It's not something you want to use all the time because it is quite a sort of a special sound. It's a very tense one, and it's got to fit the context of whatever you're playing. But it is a useful one to remember. If you look at the right hand notes that we end up with there, notice that it's a major triad in second inversion. So it's a kind of handy way of remembering it. The major triad, second inversion. And if you look at the notes below, because they're just taken from the diminished seventh chord, they just are the notes of the diminished seventh chord. Hope you found that useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you.